Hearing compression can be challenging, especially at first. And if I'm being honest, I still find it difficult to hear the effects of compression from time to time. And I've been working with compressors for over 10 years. But along the years, teachers and mentors have shared a few tips with me that have helped me understand what to listen for when using compressors. And in this video, I want to share some of those tips with you because I think most teachers, myself included, fail to give enough attention to the most important thing to listen for when using compression. Thanks to Sweetwater and Universal Audio for sponsoring this video and supporting audio education. For the demos in this video, I'll be using the new Universal Audio Volt 876 audio interface. It's got 8 preamp channels that we'll use to record drums, and we can experiment with the built-in 76 style compression, as well as an 1176 plugin within the DAW Luna. You can find links to each of these in the description below the video. Now that everything's recorded, let's start with a side-by-side comparison of the drums recorded with no compression and the drums with 76 style compression engaged on every channel. When you first engage the compressor on the Volt 876, the signal gets a lot louder. So there must be some gain or makeup gain applied, but I've matched the level of the clips in post-production to make this a fair comparison so we can focus in on listening to not only the dynamics, but also the tonality. We'll start with dry, with no compression, and these other 3 are examples of the 3 settings on the Universal Audio Volt interfaces. That's fast, guitar, and vocal. There are 3 styles available on the 76 compressors within the interface, as I mentioned, and each one sounds a bit different, as we just heard. The reason they sound different is because they each have a unique attack and release setting. The fast setting has a fast attack and a quick release. The guitar setting has a medium attack and a slow release, and the vocal setting has a slow attack and a slow release. In case you're new to these terms, here's a quick overview. Attack controls how quickly the compression starts, while release controls how long the compression stays clamped down. And this is where most videos talk about how compression can be used to even out the dynamics in a performance. And that is true, and it is your goal in some cases. When I play this clip of the tom mics with no compression, you'll notice that the peaks on this meter over here will change from hit to hit. And then when I engaged the 76 style compressor on the interface, it smoothed out the drum hits and made them more uniform. You can see that on the meter. The compressor on the Volt 76 has a fast attack of 30 microseconds when it's in the fast setting, which almost immediately clamps down on those transients at the beginning of each tom hit. Side note, the 1176 compressor is known for its unique ability to have an extremely fast attack time of only 20 microseconds. If we ran this signal through a compressor with a long attack time setting, the transients might slip through before the compression kicks in. On an 1176, that would be done by turning the attack control knob all the way to the left, making the attack time slower. On the release side, I like to listen for the length of the drum hit, or even the amount of room that I hear with each drum hit. With longer release times, such as what you might find in the guitar setting, we would hear the room sound less than in a setting where the release is quicker. Have a listen between the dry and the fast setting again, and see if you can hear the drum hit itself seems to be extended. And that's because the compressor is letting go, allowing the room sound to fully shine through. A typical compressor brings the loud parts down in relation to the quiet parts, and then makeup gain brings everything up together, resulting in a less dynamic signal. And that's where many people stop when teaching compression. That's why many of us think of compression as an envelope controller. All of this that I've said so far about envelope and dynamic range is true, but it's not the full story. Because when you alter the dynamics of a sound with a compressor, you generate harmonic distortion. And this is where a lot of the magic of compression lies. If you get one thing from this video, it's to start listening to compression as an envelope shaper and a distortion box. Before going any further, it's important to note that distortion isn't necessarily bad. In fact, it's one of the main reasons why an engineer might use a compressor, because they want to distort the signal intentionally and spread out some of the energy to more frequencies throughout the spectrum. To hear the distortion I'm talking about, let's pull up the kick drum. I'll solo the outside kick mic. First, we can listen to it dry with no compression. Then we'll listen to the 76 compressor engaged. Listen to the transient and the decay, as we did before, but this time also listen for how the tone of the kick changes in the low, mid, and high frequencies. Through a combination of A, altering the shape of the waveform, and B, the resulting harmonics that arise from doing that, the compressed version sounds a bit tighter and a bit brighter. Listen specifically for the difference in the low frequencies and in the sound of the batter. I'm going to play it again. This time I'll play the dry version and then just one of the compressed versions. Now, these settings on the Volt 876 interface are designed to give you a few options to work with, and you don't have to feel limited to using the guitar setting only for guitar or the vocal setting only for vocals. The differences between these recordings are very subtle, and if we wanted more compression, we could simply increase the preamp gain on the interface. The threshold of the compressor is fixed, so rather than moving the threshold down, as you might typically do on other compressors, you boost the input signal up to the threshold level. This is similar to the way the classic Universal Audio 1176 works. We'll start with the preamp gain low, meaning the signal is low in comparison to where the threshold is. And then I'll gradually turn up the preamp gain, which will push the signal deeper and deeper into the threshold. Here we go. Okay, I turned the preamp back down, and then we'll continue to listen to it as it gradually pushes into the compressor. Okay, there you could hear some distortion. And some of that was from the compressor itself, but at a certain point you may actually start clipping the preamp. But listen to that again as we go and increase the gain. Okay, and finally here's the vocal setting. So that's a very extreme example, but you can hear that at a certain point you'll start to hear the distortion, which actually is harmonically related to the fundamental. So if you have a kick that is not really cutting through in a mix because it's so low frequency, you can maybe compress that or saturate it to create harmonics that are related to that note that can be heard on smaller speakers or within a more dense mix. What I want to do next is open up an 1176 plugin that emulates the classic hardware device. That way we can explore the settings in more detail with less subtle examples. Let's just throw on a kick drum preset here to get us in the right area. So we'll start with it dry with no compression, and then about halfway through, I'll add in the compressor. Like I said, there is a fixed threshold when using this plugin and when using the hardware device it's modeled after. We can control the amount of compression by choosing the ratio with these buttons right here. And we're going to start with 8:1. That's what's in the kick drum preset. We'll dial in the input gain. More input gain means more compression. Less input gain means less compression, because remember, the threshold is fixed. And then we can dial in the output gain, so the gain structure is properly managed. In this case, I'll try to set it so that the output level matches the level when it's bypassed. So let me dial that in really quickly here. First, I will decide how much compression I want by manipulating the input knob. And then I'll listen to it bypassed to see if it's quieter. I can make a little adjustment here so that when we turn on the compression, it will naturally get louder in many cases. So we can turn that back down. That way, when we A/B and we compare the dry versus the compressed, we're listening to the actual timbre and the actual dynamics of the instrument rather than being fooled by the louder is better trick. Okay, that's close enough for this explanation. Here it becomes much easier to hear the difference. Although, if you're still struggling to understand and label what you're hearing, that's completely okay, because this is how you practice and get better. This is the kind of thing we do in our mixing and ear training program at Audio University. So if you're interested in this, check out the link below to sign up and start training your ears with the support of our instructors and our members. Let's listen to the kick compression. And while we listen, let's experiment with the attack and release settings. Note that on the 1176, turning the attack and release knobs up makes for a shorter or quicker attack and release, and turning them down makes for a longer attack and a slower release. And this meter right here is currently set to show gain reduction. With slower attack times, the main level meter shows a higher level because the compressor starts working after the initial transient gets through. Let me show you what I mean. Shortening the attack time catches that transient earlier, and therefore the meter is never allowed to go quite that loud as it was when the transient slipped through. Although adjusting the attack time will change the character of the harmonic distortion. Have a listen to see if you can hear it. And remember, even if you can't hear it yet, this is still a useful practice. Listen to the tone. Now, you'd want to find the sweet spot in that range that makes the most sense for the instrument you're mixing in the song you're mixing. And I'm not even going to tell you where I want to put it because I want you to use your ears the next time you mix. The release time, on the other hand, can be heard in the length of the resonance. As I mentioned earlier, longer release time holds the later part of the drum hit at a lower level, shortening the sound. Shorter release time lets go of the compression, allowing the level to return to normal, and the note will sound a bit more sustained. Let's give that a listen. And here it's pretty obvious, just looking at the gain reduction meter, that when the release time is very slow and it's a very long release, the meter never returns to zero. It's always compressing. And when I bring it up, I can almost listen to the rhythm that the person is playing if I want it to come all the way up by the time the next hit occurs. Listen. Okay, hopefully this is helping. Leave a comment below if this video has been helpful so far, because I know this is something that I have struggled with and many students have struggled with. Let's move on though to an example where we put the 1176 on a drum bus. Okay, so what I've done here is I've sent all of my drum channels without compression to this drum bus here in Luna. And on that drum bus, I've put an insert. I'm going to bring this fader up to 0. I will first bypass the compressor and then we'll turn it on. First, let's listen to the effect that the compressor has when you send in every element of the drum kit. And you could hear there that some of the hits sounded like they were pumping quite a bit and maybe not in the best way. And that's where we can use attack and release to shape the envelope or to shape the actual dynamics, the attack and the decay to the way we want it. But you also heard a lot of harmonic distortion. It made the drums sound, spongy, and it made them sound more rich. And it brought a lot of the room out as well. When I dial in the attack and release times just right, it can fill in the spaces between the drum hits by bringing out the room sound at those points. Let me try that real quick. This does make the drums sound big, but they also lack dynamics now that I've squeezed it all out. So let's try sending the drums to this bus with the compressor and to a bus without a compressor. And then I can blend the two together in a technique called parallel compression. Hopefully the transients come through from the original dry recordings, and the 1176 bus can add some weight and body to the sound. We'll start with the compressed bus turned all the way down, and then I'll slowly bring it up. You can also try a similar technique by compressing a room mic that's placed further away from the drums, and then blending that in with the original. If this video helped you understand what people might mean when they say adding color with compression, let me know with a comment below, because that was my goal. In the next video that's on your screen now, we're digging deeper and exploring the analog sound. What is it, and how do you harness it in a mix? I'll see you there.